Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head on UATV and I'm Sergiy Gerasymchuk. In recent years, significant changes happened in the foreign policy strategy of China. Europe became one of its priority interests, and this opened a new chapter in the relations between Ukraine and China. To talk more about this, we're joined in the studio today by Sergiy Gerasymchuk, member of the board at Foreign Policy Council, Ukrainian Prism. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So, Mr. Gerasymchuk, how have the relations between the two countries changed within the recent years?
In the recent years, we can see the sudden evolvement of the relations between Ukraine and China, because in 2013, 2014, we had sort of gap in relations, because in Beijing, they very cautiously took the glance at the events in Ukraine, the revolution, because you probably know that Chinese do not like revolutions and are really afraid about any foreign involvement. However, the situation started gradually changing after 2017.
17.
Yes. First, the Chinese party was looking at us and looking at the evolution of the situation in Ukraine, plus that they were also observing the conflict with Russia that we have. But they were like very slow, but important steps. It was like meeting of the president with the Chinese leader in the United States on the margins of one of the summits. And after that, really important, it was meeting in Davos, where President Poroshenko and Xi Jinping met. After that, in the end of 2017, there was a very important intergovernmental commission with the participation of Vice Prime Minister of China, Ma Kai, here in Kyiv. They met with President Poroshenko, with Prime Minister Groisman, and with Mr. Kubiv, who was his vis-a-vis in the commission. And that set a new agenda for the bilateral relations.
Good. So what is the new agenda? What do we cooperate on since 2017?
Well, first, China came up with a few proposals, important proposals. They are starting a visa-free regime between Ukraine and China.
Really?
Yes.
Since when?
They just proposed it to us, but we didn't give a proper response yet.
So this is us who should give the proper response.
Yes, because there is a clear proposal, clear message. Plus, China also considers starting a free trade area with Ukraine. And moreover, China is ready to give some period of preferences for Ukraine, because, of course, our economics are too different. Like Chinese economy is really big. However, they are ready to propose some preferences for some period of time, like 10 years or something.
How would this free trade agreement influence the Ukrainian domestic market?
Well,
and the prices.
It's very interesting for Ukraine, because China perceives Ukraine as a close neighbor of the European Union, however, not obliged by all the European rules and standards. So China considers it first as a place for some production, which can be further delivered to the European Union from the Ukrainian territory, plus as a place for transit, because China is interested in developing its Belt and Road initiative, and nowadays they have a big hub in Georgia. And from Georgia, some goods can come through Ukraine further to the European Union, because Ukraine is in a very nice position geographically, because we are bordering a number of European Union states.
So they are also interested in establishing some manufacturing entities here too.
Yes, there is interest in that. Plus, China is already implementing a number of projects. We have quite good relations in the agricultural sphere, and China is importing a lot of Ukrainian goods.
What goods do Chinese people import?
The main sources of agricultural products are corn and oil. And sunflower oil. They have some enterprises already here established in Ukraine. Chinese company Kofco is a big player, and they are entering the market. Plus, of course, we are also exporting to China iron ore. Plus, there is a project on space industry, and we have like 70 small projects within the Chinese moon program, but by providing them equipment for their traveling to the moon. Yeah, and besides, there is also cooperation in the military sphere, but it is traditional one. It started in 1991, and since that it was more or less stable.
So this, as far as I understand, this trade cooperation is on the rise between Ukraine and China.
Yep.
What other directions, economic directions, have a big potential, but didn't grow that much.
Well, it's important for us not only to export just raw materials, and it's important for us to set joint ventures with China to provide these raw materials with some added value. And that's a very important direction in which we should move further here in Ukraine, because by having these joint enterprises, we can profit from that more than we are doing at the moment. But also it's very interesting to keep in mind that Chinese investors are always interested in state guarantees. And that can be a complication on our side, because now we are in the period of upcoming elections, and probably we will have some sort of slowdown in the next year, because it would be difficult for Chinese to get any state guarantees, since we do not know who's going to be a president or prime minister.
What state guarantees are we talking about?
That's state guarantees for Chinese investments. So they invest.
So this is the safe environment to invest money.
Yeah, they invest even into private companies, but they want state guarantees for that.
Okay, as far as I know, recently you presented the analytical study Ukraine-China after 2014, a new page in relations,
yes.
Right? Could you tell us what is it about, and tell us more about it, well, not touching these topics that we already discussed?
In the study, we tackled like economic cooperation, political cooperation, and participation of Ukraine in Chinese global and regional projects. So we've already discussed economic cooperation and political cooperations. The only thing that I want to stress is that in the last 5 years, China belongs to Ukrainian top 5 trade partners, according to trade turnover.
Which is very important for Ukraine.
Yeah, and besides we have Russia, Belarus, Poland, and Germany. So,
and Russia still is in top 5?
Yeah, Russia is still in top 5.
How come?
Well, it's still a big economy and a neighboring country. So
we do still keep this trade?
Yeah, although it was downgraded by half, like by 50% since the beginning of war.
How would this cancellation of this this partnership, I mean friendship and cooperation treaty influence the trade sector? Or would it influence the trade sector?
Well, I cannot tell you for sure if there is any correlation between this treaty and economic cooperation, but what I can tell for sure is that we definitely see that the curve of trade turnover with Russia is on the downgrading.
Okay. Well, during this presentation of this analytical study that we mentioned, you stated that Ukraine should join the 16+1 regional initiative of China, at least as an observer, right?
Yes.
Could you tell our audience about this 16+1 regional project? What is it about?
Well, 16+1 initiative is the regional group of countries initiated by, the project was initiated by the Chinese side, and basically they are dealing with the Balkan states, Baltic states, Central European states, Visegrad 4, Bulgaria and Romania. And for China it's important to coordinate their investment activities in the region, and the key countries that already benefited from this cooperation within 16+1 format are Hungary, Serbia and Romania.
Okay.
And two of them are our neighbors. And for us it's interesting because 16+1 geographically covers the territory which was always in the interest of Ukraine, which is called Intermarium. Plus it coincides...
What is this territory? So our audience understand.
So starting from Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, then Visegrad countries, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, then Bulgaria and Romania.
This
and
Eastern Partnership countries.
Yeah. Not Eastern Partnership countries, just Central Eastern European. Yeah, and we can join it to the initiative just in the status of observer, like Belarus did, because Belarusian government tried a lot, invested a lot of efforts into gaining this status, because they already have set cooperation with the Chinese side. Plus, to some extent, accepting them as an observer was a message to Moscow that China does not perceive Belarus as a part of big Russia, but already starts perceiving it as Central European states.
So Belarus has a status of observer.
Yes, they gained.
But Hungary, Serbia, and what is the third country?
Romania.
They do participate in this initiative.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what spheres do they benefit in the most?
Well, infrastructure projects. China is investing into infrastructure a lot. China wants to connect the southern and northern ports of Europe for the goods transit. So it's mainly infrastructure and economic cooperation, because China does not perceive the 16+1 initiative for promoting like their ideology or anything like that. Pure trade, basically speaking.
Okay, but speaking of Belarus and their experience, does this status of an observer help developing a better dialogue only with China or also with the rest of the 16 partnering countries?
Well, anyway, when you are sitting at the meetings of 16+1 initiatives, then you are better perceived by the rest of the countries who are also in the same rooms. So, I do believe that one day our representative should also sit there, and probably it will have impact on the relations with the countries of the region. Sometimes they are not that nice at the moment.
How do you think, what impact and what results could it bring for Ukraine if we gain the status of an observer in the 16+1?
Well, I believe that it will result in acceleration of the economic relations with China, plus with the countries of the region, and it will definitely strengthen our potential of a transit country.
Okay. Who has this decisive authority about the status of an observer?
Well, formally speaking, all the countries should support the idea, but speaking in terms of realistic approach, it's China who decides. But what is the precondition? In our case, the precondition is our response, clear response towards other Chinese initiatives already mentioned, visa-free regime and free trade area.
So then after that, if we develop this...
Yeah, because at the moment we even didn't give any response. We neither said we agree nor disagree. So we should elaborate dialogue on these issues, and then we can proceed with the regional initiatives.
Okay, if we proceed with the regional initiatives, we have neighboring Hungary, which is one of the most benefiting countries of the 16+1 regional initiatives. Would it be dangerous for Ukraine because the dialogue with Hungary hasn't been very peaceful for the last few months?
Yeah, I see what you mean, but basically speaking, contrary to, let's say, 3C initiatives, contrary to the EU, contrary to NATO, the main shareholder in case of 16+1 is China, not Hungary. And Hungary doesn't have veto
right or something.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is interesting. Well, let's hope that the cooperation is going to prosper and develop. Thank you so much for your interesting comments.
Thank you for your interest.
This was Sergiy Gerasymchuk, member of the board at Foreign Policy Council Ukrainian Prism. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Sergiy Gerasymchuk. Goodbye.